Apparently, New York Jets fans who were fed up with the team's performance last year weren't the only ones who didn't feel like watching Gangrene's games in 2023. Sorry, 2022. Nathaniel Hackett, Jets offensive coordinator, says to the press the other day that by week 8, that was his first realization that Breece Hall could be a weapon out of the backfield. Had no idea who he was coaching. I'm Glenn Naughton with JetNation Radio and JetNation.com. Be sure to log into JetNation.com where you can register and become a part of what is the most active Jets message board on the web. Joined today, as always, by my co-host, Chris Schubert. Chris, not sure if you heard the comments, saw them earlier today. I didn't know if I should laugh or cry, so I did a little bit of both. But Nate Hackett basically says, it was a nice surprise that Breece Hall can catch the football. Hey, Nate, when did you find that out? Week 8, 9, somewhere in that neighborhood. He caught a couple passes. They hire these people, and they don't even. How you doing, Chris?
Glenn, doing fantastic. What a great way for us to start 2024 together with just the gift that keeps on giving, which is the 2023 New York Jets. Look, it's ridiculous. It's absurd. He shouldn't be here next season. He's going to be here next season. Like every time something like this happens, we can rinse repeat the cycle of discussing how bad Nathaniel Hackett is at his job, explaining to everybody that he's going to continue to have his job because Aaron Rodgers is here, and then we can move on to the next story and then continue that cycle over and over again. Look, what do you expect? What do you expect from a guy who ran one of the worst offenses I've ever seen in Denver in 2022 and then gets to New York and somehow is able to one-up his own failure in 2022 and run an even worse offense in 2023. Please spare me the Blake Bortles, Jacksonville, the 2 MVP seasons with Rodgers. I will continue to reiterate, the 2 seasons in Green Bay where Rodgers won the MVP, Nathaniel Hackett was not the primary play caller. That was Matt LaFleur. He was the guy calling the plays throughout the game. Everybody has complained throughout the course of the 2023 season about the way Nathaniel Hackett calls the game. Glenn, I would love to join you in partaking in a beverage right now. I'm still at work. I got to leave here pretty soon after we're done with the show, so I can't do that. But I'd love to do that with you because that's what this team does to me. Yeah. Was not the primary play caller in Green Bay. A couple years in Buffalo where he's the primary play caller. Look at those statistics. They weren't very good. This has followed Nathaniel Hackett around. The only years where he's above average as a coordinator has been with Aaron Rodgers and when he hasn't been the primary play caller. So none of this should surprise any of us. Yet he is still going to return. And I heard Connor Hughes mention that basically the entire coaching staff and the entire front office is going to be back in 2023 or 2024. That we shouldn't expect any major changes to this team. That Keith Carter and Todd Downing were two guys that, according to Connor Hughes or Robert Saleh, slammed the table to bring in his guys for 2024. So you're going to bring back the coaches, you're going to bring back the front office, and you're going to expect this group to figure it out in one offseason when it is all in for 2024. Look, this is what we have to look forward to for the next couple of months. I'm so excited, Glenn. So excited. I think you asked me how I was doing it I'm great. Doing well.
Me too. Fantastic. Happy New Year to you and yours. Listen, if Carter stays, man, I mean, but you know what? I'm glad you mentioned that because it goes to something we've talked about this year. And who did I was scrolling through the Twitter today, and Brian Baldinger went on to WFAN, and I don't listen to FAN. I haven't in years. Even when I was living in the States, they were so bad. It was so bad. I used to listen to Philly sports radio. Like I was living in Philly, but I could get FAN. Yeah. And listen,
I'm a Michael K guy.
I'm a bad person.
I'm on the Michael K side of the New York sports radio.
I like K. I bumped into him at an event one time. He could not have been a nicer human being. I was back in the States again for a couple years, and that was when Boomer. This is before the Carton conviction, so it was still Boomer and Carton, and it was painful. I would be driving to work, and because I had like an hour drive to work, and I'd look and realize like I'm 40 minutes into my drive, they still haven't said a word about sports. It's like bad jokes, and I don't even know what they were talking about, but they would have like literally 40, 50, 60-minute stretches of no sports talk on a sports radio show, and neither of them were funny. So I'm like, why am I listening to this? They're not making me laugh. It's not entertaining. They're not talking about sport. And I started listening to Philly, and those people, they're obnoxious. They're not well informed, but they talked about sports, and they were, somewhat entertaining. So anyway, coming off of that, but I heard Baldinger on FAN because I was scrolling Twitter and somebody retweeted something, and he said something that I touched on the other day, and actually I think the last one of the more recent shows I did, it said that Brian Baldinger is saying why isn't Robert Saleh ever chewing anybody out? Why is Robert? And the point I made, and I can't remember. I can't remember if it was our show or someone else's pod that I was doing, but I said Robert Saleh. I have no issue with him barking at the officials with some of the calls we're seeing this year, but how are you going to bark at the officials when they're wrong, and then when your guy gets a penalty, he gets a pat on the helmet, he gets an attaboy. All right, good job, good try. You lined up wrong, or you weren't supposed to be on the field, or you jumped off sides. Robert Saleh is going to give you a hug and a high five. But if you're a referee and you make a mistake, it's inexcusable, and I got to get in your ear and tell you what an idiot you are. How about we have some consistency here, Robert? How about yell at everyone who makes dumb mistakes and hold your players accountable?
And he's talked about this, and he has a weekly spot with Michael Kay each and every Monday or after every game that the Jets play. And as somebody who listens to New York sports radio, specifically Michael Kay, every day on my drive home, I listen to the 3 hours. I've listened to every single Robert Saleh interview this season after every single game the Jets have played. Consider myself somewhat of an expert on what Robert Saleh says. He's been asked this exact question, and he has unequivocally said, that is not who I am. Yes, you've seen me be animated and loud and boisterous on the sidelines in San Francisco, and that's kind of been a narrative about me, but that was always in a positive light. I am not somebody that is going to chew out a player on the sideline. So if you expect that from me, he unequivocally said it's not going to happen. Now, again, maybe he does it behind closed doors, and that's the environment where he feels comfortable. But for those out there who want to see him show that emotion when somebody does something bad, we've had 3 years worth of history on this. He's not going to do it. He hasn't done it. He's going to continue to not do it. So don't expect that to change. This is who Robert Saleh is, good, bad, or indifferent. This is the coach that the New York Jets have put themselves behind for 2024. So that's what you're going to get. You're going to get a coach. You're going to get a coach who is undisciplined in getting his team prepared. He's unprepared. He is one of the least aggressive coaches I've ever seen coach in today's modern NFL. And he's not going to be loud and boisterous and yell at a player. And all you have to do is look across the building to see the way Brian Daboll throws a tablet at Daniel Jones and yells at Daniel Jones on a regular basis to try to get through to him. That, we got to be better. And so this is the path that Woody Johnson and the New York Jets have chosen to go down. This is it. This is what they're doing for 2024.
I think what's alarming to me, I'm actually okay with that, with having a coach with that mentality. But at some point, as a fan, as you're watching, it's like, dude, you got to snap at some point. Like, are you just going to let them have 35 penalties a week, and at no point you're going to say, okay, being their friend isn't working. I need to get in someone's face and try to get their attention. But in the case of Robert Saleh, apparently not. He's just going to kind of let this going on.
Look, again,
I don't know. Bronx says he's the worst coach in the NFL. In a lot of ways, you can make that case. It's hard to argue.
Okay,
there's some bad ones, but he's not doing a great job.
Let's play the game. How many coaches in the NFL right now would we take over Robert Saleh? Or how many coaches would we take Robert Saleh over? It's probably the easier way to do this because then the list will be much shorter. All right. There's some dead air here because I need to think through all the teams. So just bear with me, everybody.
Mm-hmm.
I would take Robert Saleh over Ron Rivera.
Yes.
I'm comfortable saying that. Defensively, Saleh is much better than Ron Rivera. So that's one. I think by default,
Rivera's lost his fastball at this point.
Correct. I think I would take him over the current Carolina coaching staff. So that's two.
Mm-hmm.
Would you rather have Arthur Smith or Nathaniel?
I was going to say
or
Atlanta,
Robert Saleh?
I would take him over Arthur Smith
because Arthur Smith was considered one of the guys for the Jets job.
Yeah,
if they wanted to go offense, I think I would take Saleh over Smith, but it's close.
Yeah,
it's really close.
Smith is he's I don't know, they're bad, and he's a little bit of a flaky sort of a what the hell is this guy doing?
Listen, again, you're not going to hear any Robert Saleh praise here on this show from me, but I would take Robert Saleh over Dennis Allen in a heartbeat. Dennis Allen is one of the worst coaches in the National Football League.
Yeah,
he is not getting the most out of that Saints roster. So
he's
you
not.
Put Dennis Allen. It's maybe 4 or 5 coaches. He's a bottom third of the league NFL head coach. And I've made this point on the show before. I don't think we've seen his bad coachingness actually impact the Jets in a meaningful way because all of this has just been nonsense and noise for 2 years. where
Yeah.
or if 3 years where it hasn't really mattered. It's with process over results. And so when he makes a poor coaching decision by trying to kick a field goal or punting when he should go for it, and it doesn't matter because the Jets are mathematically eliminated, nobody really files that stuff away
Yeah.
for the following season. Well, guess what? When he does it in games that matter late in the season, when the Jets are in the mix, because I'm here to tell you, folks, look at the way the AFC playoff picture is playing out in week 18 of the regular season. Do you think that's just going to all of a sudden kind of clear its way out for next season? No. Indy's going to be better when Anthony Richardson gets healthy. Another year of CJ Stroud. Cincinnati is going to have Joe Burrow back. The Chargers are going to have probably competent coaching with Justin Herbert for the first time in his career. You don't think the Bills are going to bounce back? You don't.
Yep.
I mean, countless examples of teams that are going to be better versions of what they already are, and they're already in the mix. You don't think Denver is going to get better quarterback play and be better next season? Like, so this stuff matters. You need to be able to win on the margins, and you have a coach who does not excel in the stuff on the margins in games, and you've got a 40-40, going to turn 41 in the middle of the season, quarterback coming off of an Achilles injury when he came off of a thumb injury that led to one of the worst years statistically of his career. It doesn't add up to giving me, the warm and fuzzies. I'm not seeing sunshine and rainbows when it comes to the 2024 Jets right now.
Yeah, well, that's the thing is that, we talked about this at the time of the Rodgers deal, the concern about, look, great player, but he's coming off the injury. Maybe it's an aberration, but at his age, you can't ignore it. And now the more serious injury this year, to just say, oh, well, we're just going to go into next year and he's going to play 17 games or 15 games. I mean, maybe he will. I mean, 17 isn't happening because so few guys play 17. But is he going to miss time? Probably. Is he going to miss 2 games or is he going to miss 12 games? And we don't know, and we won't know till next year. And we need to know who the backup is. Even if there's people talking, oh, they have to take a quarterback in the draft, and maybe they'll take a project on day 3. But they got to get a guy in the building who can win football games.
I've got a perfect, and we'll get to this a little bit later. I've got a perfect 3rd-round quarterback for the New York Jets to take. Perfect.
There's a couple guys I like.
There's one guy in particular that would be fantastic in the 3rd round who just recently declared for the 2024 NFL draft.
Do you think he'll be there on day 3?
Oh, no. Round 3. With the end of day 2.
Okay. Oh, yeah. Then you're talking about my guy. Yes.
I'm here to tell you, he is not going to be available on day 3 because somebody's going to be smart and take this kid on day 2.
I tweeted about him the other day. I have tweets on him going back 2 years, I think.
You and me both. You and me both.
And there were people asking me where he goes, and I'm saying, look, I would take him on day 2, but there are people. I just the other day, I was listening to the With the First Pick pod with Spielman, and he does a great job. I love that show, and it was weird because Spielman earlier in the year said this guy might be QB3 in his class, which I was like, all right, he's getting on the bandwagon with me, and then the other day he's like, hey, he's a day 3 pick, and I'm like, hang on a minute, how'd you go from QB3 to day 3? And it was, I remember because he said it the week before the UCLA game, and that was probably his worst game as a pro.
Yeah, he didn't play. He
was, I mean, you talk about being under assault. Like, he had no chance that day.
And for those, because we didn't actually mention him, we are discussing Cameron Ward.
Yeah, sorry, Cam Ward, Washington State. We know who we're talking about.
Glenn and I have been huge fans of this kid since he got to Washington State. We've been a big believer in him. Yeah, Glenn, right now, and I have to do another deep dive, and I watched some tape this week for the segment that we are doing, and there is a player that I am capital letters LOVE in love with for the New York Jets. I need the Jets to lose this game on Sunday bad so they can move up the board to get this guy. I have Cam Ward as QB4 right now for me personally on my personal big board. And I think there's 2 quarterbacks that are no doubt slam dunk first rounders for me. Everybody else is day 2 or later. I do not think any of the other guys, not saying that they won't go on day 1. They probably will. I think we'll get 3. But for me personally on my big board, there are only 2 that I would feel comfortable taking in the first round. But Ward is going to be at the top of the list, I think, for me on like day 2 fits for the New York Jets if they're able to acquire draft picks somehow to have. It would be amazing.
Yeah. Real quick, what was I going to say? Something about the picks. We're going to go over. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Had the Jets lost that Washington game, they'd be poised right now to be picking 2nd.
Yeah, and they could take my guy.
But instead, they will be well below that and probably not in position to trade down and get a bounty of picks. Let's see. You should be fired if you draft another QB. At all? You don't want a QB at any point in the draft? We're not talking about round 1 here, Kev.
If you
We're
let
not talking
JD,
about like 9, 10, 11.
But he follows
round
it up
3 and beyond. you got to consider a quarterback if there's somebody there because you don't have one after Aaron Rodgers leaves.
But he follows up by saying, "Don't you if you let JD draft another quarterback?" Well, then my
Well,
question
I
to
don't.
but hold on, my question to you then, Kev, is then what's Joe Douglas doing here then? If you are not comfortable letting Joe Douglas take another swing at this, then he should not be your general manager anymore. Because Aaron Rodgers is going to be is already 40 years old. He's going to be 41 next season. So are you telling me, and I'm not, Kev, this is not an attack on you. I'm just using your point to illustrate something. Is the idea here that once Aaron Rodgers rides off into the sunset, if the Jets, let's say, win the Lombardi Trophy, goodbye, Robert Saleh, goodbye, Joe Douglas, see you later. That's it. No, if they succeed with Rodgers, they're going to be given a chance to build again. And so that's going to require
A quarterback.
drafting another quarterback. And so if they take a swing on day 3 on a guy or in round 3 on a guy, I'm not going to complain about that whatsoever. Not
And
one
I
bit.
say all the time, listen, Ozzie Newsome is widely regarded as the best GM ever by many people. He took 10 quarterbacks before he won, and one of them was Kyle Bowler in the first round. So I'm not on board with the you pick one quarterback and then you're fired if that guy doesn't pan out. It's the hardest position to find in all of sports. Giving a guy one shot means you're going to have a new GM every 2 to 3 years.
Yeah.
So that's but moving on to the draft. Got my hotel sorted out for
Look
Mobile.
at
Got the
you.
flight booked the rental car yesterday. This thing is costing me an arm and a leg.
I will say there's a DM with Glenn, myself, and Dylan, and in the message, I think it was yesterday, Glenn was like, this trip's costing me a fortune. He's like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to do this as regularly as
I was hoping to make it a yearly thing. This inflation, man, it's a killer. Everything. I'm thinking, I'm looking at the money I spent on flight, hotel, car. I'm like, what's food cost in Mobile during Senior Bowl week?
Now, have you told? Now, I'm assuming the wife knows you're going, but does the wife know the bill? Does she know the bill?
She does. She's my wife's
supportive?
awesome. My wife is awesome. I actually said to her I said to her the other day, I said, I booked my hotel. I don't know what the hell I was thinking. Like the plane ticket is booked and non-refundable, so I have to go.
You got to go, yeah.
And she's like, then just enjoy it. Like, don't think about it. Just enjoy it.
What a great response.
I was like,
that's
yeah,
excellent.
oh yeah, she's fantastic with all this stuff. She's like, go to training camp, and she likes that I enjoy this stuff. But moving on to the draft, Chris, we're gonna do a little thing here. We're gonna talk about our top handful of guys that we think the Jets should take if they don't trade. My number one option is trade down.
No. Well, okay. Depends on who's on the board.
Yeah, because Brock Bowers is the only one.
Okay. No,
I've been saying this for months. My 3 options. This is when I thought the Jets would be picking in the top 5,
and they could still be.
Choices should have been trade down. Sorry, Marvin Harrison, trade down Brock Bowers or somewhere. Yeah, no, trade down Marvin Harrison, Brock Bowers.
No, that's
because at 2 or 3, you're getting like 6 picks.
You're missing.
And you're rebuilding everything in 1 year.
You're missing a player.
What's that?
You're missing a player in that big board of options.
No. Well, oh yeah, I know who you're talking about.
Yeah.
But see, the reason I could live with that is I feel like there's that position. There's some other guys you can get.
Nah, not somebody like that.
Right, but you can get a good player like Marvin Harrison is like Hall of Famer if he stays healthy.
Well, okay, there's some other good receivers in this
that's true.
class that I've got on my list here.
Kick it off. If the New York Jets currently the Jets are picking 8th.
Now, can we explain the path for everybody? They can move up. The 8th is the lowest that they are going to pick. Like they can't go any.
If they win.
No, they can't go any
like
lower.
12, couldn't they?
No, can they? That would be disastrous.
I thought it was 8 to 12 was the range.
Hold on. Yeah, I'm gonna pull this up here on the internet. So they're at 6 and 10. No, so they would go to 7 and 10. That would mean they can go really low. Oh boy, they got to lose this game back. Lowest. Robert Saleh has to coach like he's coached every other game so that they can lose this one because if they lose, then for every one of the
coach just like they're coming off the bye week.
That's right. That'd be perfect. So for every win that Tennessee, the Chargers, and the Giants pull off is one spot that the Jets will move up in the order because they have the tiebreaker over all of those teams in strength of schedule. So if the Jets lose and Tennessee wins, boom, the Jets pick 7. If Tennessee and the Chargers win, boom, the Jets are picking 6. So they can go as high as 5. They can go as low as 12. If they are picking outside the top 10, this is going to be a disaster.
Yeah. And it's one of the names I'll cover. So we're going to go over basically with the we're gonna it's actually good to go 8-2 because it's kind of right in the middle there, 8-9 range. They're currently sitting at 8. We'll pretend they stay at 8.
Yeah.
Again, my first choice would be and by staying in, I mean they're still picking 8th. My first choice would be trade down.
Okay.
But we'll actually, what I'll do, since I already said his name, Chris, I turned on the other day, and I promise you, I promise with all my heart, this was not a backdoor attempt to watch more Brock Bowers football.
You told me you were watching some Auburn DBs, and you just happened to stumble across a good Brock Bowers game.
I'm getting ready for the Senior Bowl, and I think I'm looking at the list of accepted invites, and there's 3 Auburn DBs. I thought, okay, let me take a look and let me see what, Caddy's cut up. He's great. All the 20.
That's where I get my stuff from. Yep.
Yeah. So I put in Georgia, and there's a few games, and one of the first so I put in Auburn, and one of the first ones that pops up is Georgia, and I'm like, perfect. I want to see them against high caliber, talented players. Not even thinking about Brock Bowers. I put on the game. I'm watching it. Bowers has a couple catches early on, sort of off screen passes. DB's do a nice job containing him, shutting him down to where I'm not even thinking about him anymore. And at one point, like I think sort of third quarter, I'm like, I see him and I'm like, wow, but this has been a really bad game for Bowers. He's got like 2-3 catches for a few yards. And then he goes off. He's making one-handed catches over the middle. He's breaking tackles, dragging guys for extra yards. He's getting yacked to get into the end zone. I'm watching him as a blocker. He's driving defenders into the backfield. And I'm like, this is the guy, man. Like this, I mean, it's not that I don't know this is what he does. But when you watch it, every time you see it live, not live, but you're watching it fresh, it's like, this dude is just and anyone who said, I've seen a million people say, you can't take a tight end at 8, 9, 10. That's so stupid. You haven't watched the guy. He's not a tight end. He's in everything. I mean, Georgia used him out of the backfield. The Jets aren't going to do that. He's not going to run the football. But you line him up tight, he's going to be a monster blocker. You line him up in the slot, he's going to create tons of mismatches. You line him up outside. Some of the catches he makes one-on-one, you get him one-on-one and just put the ball up there. He's what is he, 6'4", 6'5", 6'6"? So he plays like he's 6'9". The way he elevates, fully extends, plucks balls out of the air. He's a freak athlete. But, what about Michael Pitts? What does Michael Pitts have to do with Brock Bowers aside from absolutely nothing? Nothing. They both play tight end. Don't care. Different player, different program. And to me, Bowers is one of the best tight end prospects I've ever seen. I would have zero issue taking him. He makes your O-line better. He makes your tight end group better. He makes your receivers better. He can do it all. So Bowers is the first guy I would consider at 8, 9 in that range.
I've got my list here.
Go ahead.
I have 3 honorable mentions that I did not put in the top 5.
Okay.
Brock Bowers, one of the honorable mentions. You have convinced me to at least have him on the short list as an honorable mention. But that's as far as I'm willing to go because all these players I think in front of them, a couple of them may not get there at 8, but they are players that like I would run.
That's because the guy you love, that's my feeling, is he's top 5.
You want to talk about a guy that I love. But yeah, Brock Bowers, an honorable mention for me. So, all right, so he's your top guy. Can I share my top guy?
Go ahead.
The Jets need to do everything in their power to get out of the number 8 pick and get as far up as they can. Because even if they have to move from like 5 to 4 or 5 to 3, like whatever they have to do, I think in some configuration, Glenn, we think 2 quarterbacks and Marvin Harrison Jr. are going to make up the composition of the first 3 picks. Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
So 4 is really where this could be really entertaining. So the Jets could probably move from 8 to 4 if they needed to, but if they were like picking 6 or 5, it would certainly make it a lot easier to make that swap because they should absolutely 100%. Now I have not watched all of these guys in full, so we're just this is where I'm at right now. Joe Alt needs to be a New York Jet yesterday. This guy is special. He is so composed in pass protection. I watched him against Ohio State. The game that I watched, shout out to Caddy's Cut Up once again. I watched the Ohio State tape from this year. And he's dealing like Ohio State tries to run multiple times throughout the game. This stunt where the inside rusher just wraps to the outside. And Joe Alt, with no problem, just passes off the guy that he's dealing with and just is looking at the edge rusher with time to spare. Like, what do you got for me? Bring it.
Yep.
Like, he is so composed. I think his hand usage in pass sets is just fluid. It's consistent. He's really good. Now, his run blocking at times, I felt like his momentum could be used against him. But there are times where he takes somebody and they're out of the club.
Joe Alt, out. Yep.
They no longer exist. They're being erased. Notre Dame did this weird thing where when they would go jumbo, he would flip over to the right side and play right tackle.
He went to the right side a lot.
And he's out there and he's just moving people. Like there are times where I'm like, okay, where is he? I've got to watch a play a couple of times. But I was so impressed with just the way that he handled what Ohio State threw at him multiple times throughout the game in different phases. Joe Alt, man. I messaged you as I was watching him and I'm like, this Joe Alt guy Get him on the Jets. So
And
he's my number one guy. But
I don't know if you watched to me against Clemson, because I watched I think I watched Clemson, I watched NC State, which I'd actually watched him in earlier, but watched it again the other day. And I watched the Ohio State. Clemson, I thought he was just so smooth. Like he just looked
yeah.
so like pulling and blocking. He looked like he was going through warm-ups, but he was quick. Like I don't mean effort-wise.
Well,
I mean it just looks so natural.
So he's
And
a
it's like
converted tight end. So that's his background. He was originally a tight end. So you can see the athleticism on
yeah.
display of somebody who's used to moving that way in the run game. But yeah, you mentioned him. His ability to pull is great. He can. So Notre Dame, a lot of times when they would run, I want to say it was outside zone. He's kind of just peeling off and setting the edge, and it is not a lot you can gain from reps like that. But I thought his technique was good. Listen, I came away really, really excited about Joe Alt. Now, is he going to be there for the Jets if they pick number 8? No, he's not going to get.
That's the
he's
thing.
not going to get there, unfortunately, because he's too good. And there are teams like right now. I look at this, and you've got Tennessee, who desperately needs multiple offensive linemen in this draft. The Cardinals could consider taking an offensive lineman at 4 because DJ Humphries tore his ACL and is probably not going to come back. So you could have Joel. Think about this. The Arizona Cardinals could have Joe Alt as their left tackle and Paris Johnson Jr. as their right tackle. Good luck getting after Kyler Murray if that's the case. So they could certainly be in the mix. The Giants could take another swing. The Chargers could take another swing.
That's what I mean.
You've
how
got
many
a lot
teams
of
would look at Joe Alt and say he doesn't make us better? A lot better.
Every team would be better with Joe Alt on their team, and so that's a problem. So he's my top guy. I don't think he's going to get there, but man, would I love if Joe Alt was hoisting up a Jets jersey on draft night.
That would be nice. My next guy, he's a little bit. He seems to be a little bit lower rated.
Okay.
On the boards that I've looked at.
Okay.
But Talius Fuaga out of Oregon State, another tackle. I think this is
not a deep dive yet, but
yeah. Just I watch him and I just think tone setter, like so nasty, so powerful. Locks on his target when he I'm not putting him in Trent Williams class, but he has that sort of like just knock guys out of the play if he gets a little bit of momentum. Whether if he's blocking over the middle or if he's in fact, it was a couple months ago I first started hearing buzz on him, so I turned on a game. And I think if it wasn't the first play, it was the first drive. And he's lined up at tackle and he's blocking the middle linebacker and just completely obliterated the guy. And I was like, all right, I'm on board. I'm a fan. And he does a lot of that. So he's a bigger guy. And again, draft process, right? Like you're going to see guys mocked late round 1 that are going to go early round 1 and things like that. I think what is it? PFN has him 20 right now. TDN, I haven't looked at their board. I checked them out briefly today. I didn't look at their rankings, but he's a guy that I would consider in that spot if I'm the Jets. Like I look at Latham because I mentioned this the other day, Chris. I don't know what your thoughts are
on the list.
Yeah. So, but here, and I don't have a problem with it. I just find it funny that when I go on Twitter, the number of and JetNation on the forums at JetNation, between that and Twitter, the number of people who tell me that Joe Douglas is incompetent because he drafted a 360-pound lineman, which is clearly not a weight that a guy can sustain in the NFL, and the injuries to Mekhi Becton were bound to happen. And then I put out a poll on Twitter and say, should the Jets consider Lathan? I don't mention the weight. I don't mention 77%. Yes, take him. I'm like, where's all the people telling me that picking a guy that weighs that much is a very obvious injury? And I've only watched him a couple times. I haven't watched as much of him as I have of Alt. So I'm not all in or all out with him. But what I've seen is encouraging. Powerful guy, obviously. I just thought that was a funny note, is that Joe Douglas was obviously stupid to draft a 360-pound tackle, but this year he should consider drafting a 360-pound tackle.
Yeah, I got J.C. Latham on my list as well, so we don't have to discuss him. Marvin Harrison Jr., I have on my list as well at number 3. I don't want to dive too deep into him because, again, he's not going to be there more than likely. 3. But I will tell you, there is another receiver that made my list. Do you want to take a guess of which receiver that was?
Well, it could be a couple. It might be a guy who made a guy who made my list in Keon Coleman.
Oh, so that's unfortunate. Keon Coleman in the honorable mentions category.
Okay. Odunze.
Romeo Dunze is the guy on my list. So I am out on Malik Neighbors being a top choice for the New York Jets. He's small, 6 foot. This team needs to prioritize a bigger bodied receiver that can go down the field and make those plays in this Aaron Rodgers offense. Rome Odunze, let me just give you some numbers here. He's 6'3", 215. I've got zero problems with Rome going down the field and just throwing it up there because he'll go up there and get it. He's been extremely productive in his time at Washington. 1,553 receiving yards this season on 87 catches, 13 touchdowns, an average of 17.9. He's been on the receiving ends of a lot of those deep bombs that Michael Penix Jr. has been throwing throughout the course of this season. If you can't get Marvin Harrison Jr., I think the next guy up should be Odunze, and then I think Keon Coleman should be right behind him as well. If you want to go the wide receiver department, that would be how I would order it right now, 1 through 3. I'm super excited to dive in more to Rome's tape.
Yeah, he's he first. I think I first noticed him last year. I forget which game it was, but I mean he had so many big games. But when I was watching Washington last year, and he had making these sideline grabs, fingertip grabs, with the toe tap, able to keep himself in bounds, and just made one play after another. And you kind of feel like here's a guy to watch next year. And now he's topped that off with another big year. The interest mentioning him makes me think though, where does Michael Penix go? Like, could he have a big enough pre-draft season, especially if they go on to win the national championship?
Mm-hmm.
Like, does he propel himself into the top 5 conversation and push another guy down?
Yeah, so I said this in the summer, and nothing has really changed in this regard for me. This is just my personal opinion. I know most teams are probably going to view this differently, but I think some teams are going to view it very, very similarly to me. When you look at the injury history that Michael Penix Jr. has had, and you look at the types of surgeries that he's had, I believe it is surgeries on both knees. It is a shoulder surgery that he's had as well. Yep. That's not the injury list that I want if I'm making a top 15, top 20 selection on a franchise quarterback. He's also 23 years old, so he's on the older side of prospects. So an older prospect who rose a little bit late in the process, and he's got an injury list. He's not in my top 4 quarterbacks. I mentioned where I had Cam Ward. My QB3 is not Michael Penix. I don't have him there because me personally, I would feel very, very strongly against taking a guy with that type of injury history. And I will tell you this, Glenn, and this is just a personal thing when I watched him in the summer, and I know he's had a great season, was a finalist for the Heisman and everything. It really feels like to me that most of the success that Michael Penix Jr. is going to be able to have at the next level with the way that he's able to throw the football is going to be predicated on having time in structure in the pocket. And I just don't know if you're going to get the type of time he had at Washington behind an NFL offensive line. I just don't think it's going to happen. And so the decisions are going to be quicker. You're going to have to get the ball out quicker. You're going to have to read defenses quicker. Everything about it is going to speed up. And I worry if he is put in a situation where the offensive line isn't perfect and he's not able to play in structure consistently, if he is going to be able, we talk so much about Caleb Williams and what he's able to do out of structure, right? And that's great. The ability to, when things completely break down, to be able to roll out and just do Justin Fields-esque things, Patrick Mahomes-esque things, Josh Allen-esque things, when you're able to just make plays, right? That's great. You love to have that. That is a skill that not everybody has. But you have to also blend it with being able to operate in structure. And I asked the question honestly to somebody who's evaluating the draft. Do you trust Michael Penix to be good enough in structure? And do you trust him enough with the injury history that I labeled to do enough things out of structure? And I just can't get there right now. And I'll do another deep dive when the season's over and we have more tape. I don't end my evaluation point, throughout the season and what I watched in the summer. That's where my struggles are with Michael Penix. Now, he would not be the guy if I was predictive right now of the third quarterback off the board. It would not be Michael Penix for me.
Yeah, I don't. That's the thing, that the injuries are what scares me most. It's a matter of, like I said, listening to with the first pick the other day, and they kind of said it's if the medicals check out and he does what they were more bullish than I am. I don't see it happening, but I want it to happen. I want a couple of guys to jump up into the top 5, 6, or 7 and push some guys down, because that would obviously be beneficial for the New York Jets. Now, I mean, it really feels like, Chris, and I mean, what's that?
So I got his injury history up because I think it's important for everybody when I say that and I put that out loud. Like I think there's context that's required. So according to the story that I'm looking at, he tore his right ACL as a true freshman, surgery for a dislocated SC joint in his non-throwing shoulder as a redshirt freshman, tore his right ACL again the following year, and then suffered a season-ending AC separation in his throwing shoulder a few weeks after returning from the second ACL tear. He's torn his right knee twice, and he's had season-ending surgery in both shoulders. An SC joint in his non-throwing shoulder and a AC separation in his throwing shoulder.
Yeah, there's no for me,
I
especially
can't
given the
get
Jets'
there.
history. I mean, not that the Jets are considering a quarterback in round one anyway. And I know I've seen people say it. I've seen people say trade down and take a quarterback. They're just y- they're not. Like it's all about building around Aaron. At least for the first those premium picks, that sort of top 100. You're building around Aaron Rodgers. Outside of that, maybe you take a backup, but it does seem it's as I expected. If you're talking about what the Jets should do in round one, it's going to be pretty much pass catchers and tackles, right? Because you're not
My
taking a
entire
guard
list.
or a center that
My
early.
my entire list are tackles and wide receivers.
Yeah, and that's
That's
where
what I
I
have.
am. So the next guy I was going to mention was Keon Coleman,
Oh,
Florida
got him on
State.
my list. Yeah.
Yeah, monster receiver, good length, catches everything, creates separation. He was at Akron, right? Was he Akron last year?
Before he
No,
went to
no, I'm
Florida
I'm
State.
thinking of Tez Walker. Sorry, I'm
Yeah,
thinking of
Tez
Tez
Walker.
Walker.
Yeah.
Yeah, but where was Coleman? Coleman was a transfer too.
I believe Keon Coleman. I might also be making the same mistake you
I
are. Wasn't he at like UTSA or something?
I think I have some highlights of him from last
Stand by.
year.
Michigan State. Sorry, I'm mixing
Okay,
up my
that's right. Yeah,
transfer
I've
receivers.
tweeted out some
There's
highlights of him last
400 of
year.
them every offseason, so it's hard to remember where guys
It's
transfer from.
impossible anymore. It's gotten ridiculous. I don't listen. You hear, I don't know. There's a lot going on in college football right now that I
Crazy.
don't think is great for college football. Opt-outs, transfers. It's just it's crazy. I saw somebody today. Was it Oregon State? I think at a quarterback at his 7th year of eligibility.
Oklahoma State. Alan Bowman
Oklahoma
got
State.
7th year of eligibility. Yeah,
That's hilarious.
yeah.
That's great. Good for him. Like, obviously, you don't think you're gonna go pro, but you want to keep playing football. Like, go for it, man. Live your dream, right?
6'4", 215 for Keon Coleman too. So I mentioned the big body size of Romeo
Yeah.
Dunze, but Keon Coleman's a bigger guy at 6'4". At Michigan State before he transferred in 2022, played in 12 games, started 11 of them, almost 60 catches, 798 yards and 7 touchdowns. And then he's a part of this, great Florida State team this year. Played in all 12 games, started all 12 games, 50 catches, 658 yards, 11 touchdowns, and his average per catch was 13.2 and it was 13.8 the year before Michigan. So was just a productive player each of the last 2 seasons. And oh, by the way, he was catching passes from a guy that a lot of people think could be a pro at the next level in Jordan Travis. So, he was very productive.
Here we go. This is one that I like. This is a Michigan State play I posted the other day. Leaping, spinning,
Oh, yeah.
pulls it in.
Oh yeah.
That's
I didn't know we were gonna have tape ready to go for the show today. I love this.
as we're talking, dude, I have like 6,000 highlights pulled, and didn't even think to start throwing them in there until just now.
Do we have any Joe Alt that we can go back to?
What's that?
You got any Joe Alt we can go back to?
That's what I was just gonna say. I've got a bunch of Joe Alt, but if memory serves, none of it's labeled yet. Like I have them all labeled where I can just jump in and find them. Let me take a look at Joe Alt.
Yeah, we could.
If I have anything labeled.
We're flying by the seat of our pants on today's show, so we might as well.
I do not. There's Joe Alt, but there's no. I can't find it right now.
Okay.
But I'm trying to think who else we mentioned. Oh, Dunze. I should have some.
I'm sure you have 47 Brock Bowers clips that you can pull up for me. Yeah. Go ahead. No, I
have a separate drive for him.
Yeah, because there's just so many. There's 20 from every game, so you gotta be prepared.
Yeah, let's see what we got on Bowers here.
Also, just to round out my list, I also have Olu Fashanu down. He might get to the Jets. He might. Depends on how people feel about Joe Alt, Olu Fashanu, 1-2, 2-1. And so then all of a sudden, if another receiver jumps in the mix or a team trades up for a quarterback, then he could slide. It just depends on how teams feel about him. I think if I had to gauge it right now, Joe Alt, higher floor, lower ceiling. Olu Fashanu, lower floor, higher ceiling. And that's not to say Olu Fashanu would be bad as a rookie. I'm just if we look at floors versus ceilings, I think Alt has the better floor in year one, whereas the better ceiling overall as a player would go to Fashanu, I think. But I'm going to do a deep dive here. And
with Bowers, this is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. Line up outside, that length, the athleticism, the ability one-on-one to get down the field. Not sort of a leaping, spinning grab. Like there's not a lot of receivers who can make that play.
No, that's.
So when people say to me like, "Oh, you can't take a tight end," he's not just a tight end. He's a guy he's going to be that good. Coleman, Yeah, actually, here's one of my problems with all this, Chris, with the draft coming. Um, I've had a few laptops with have had beverages spilled on them and have thousands of
E-
highlights.
Easy. Move that beer then. Move that beer that you've got.
Well, beer's done. Beer's done.
Okay. Okay.
Um, and I've literally had like, you know, these laptops that break and I set them aside and then I fire them up a few months later and they work again, but I've since replaced them. So now I literally have 4 laptops. I think I may have picked up another one the other day. And they all have different clips and different highlights and the number of hours it takes to go through, watch, clip, label. I probably have 1,000 plays that aren't labeled, and then another 5 or 6,000 that are going back to last year and this year, and lots more to come between now and the draft.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. I'm super excited. When the season, winds down the way that it does, and we don't have Thursday night football, Monday night football, and it just kind of changes the dynamic. There's just more time to dive into this stuff. So I'm certainly looking forward to. And again, the other thing too here is we're doing this in January. The Jets are going to address some of these needs via free agency. And then that's going to sway, I think, how we feel about the direction this team goes, because they might put a priority on getting a big time wide receiver in free agency. T. Higgins going to be available. Michael Pittman Jr. would be my personal choice atop the big board, could potentially be available. And so if you can get a guy like that, we don't need to be taking a wide receiver. When we got Garrett Wilson and Michael Pittman Jr. or Garrett Wilson and T. Higgins, we good. Like, we could take a receiver on day 3, and hopefully, as Kev mentions here in the chat, like, we need to find a diamond in the rough like Puka Nacua. I mean, Puka Nacua got way, way underdrafted. That was just a mistake by the league.
Yeah.
And you got to be able to hit on those. But, the Jets can then, take a flyer on day 3 and, pick up a wide receiver for depth that way. So, yeah, it's going to really, really depend on how things play out in free agency. This is another Brock Bowers clip, I'm assuming. Oh,
This
no.
is Cam Ward.
Oh.
With the laser over the middle.
There's a throw he makes in the Arizona State game this season. Very similar. This is right down in the same area. And it is just through 2 defenders. And the 2 defenders are basically in the best spot they can be. But Cam Ward, there's just zip. It's in the perfect spot. Good luck. And he does it time and time again.
I actually want to try to find it. I was thinking about it earlier today, that he made in the Colorado game, which was same type of thing. You just laugh. You just watch the throw and you just laugh. Like, good luck knocking that ball down. It's a million miles an hour on the money in stride. Just such a fun guy, and he can throw with touch.
Oh yeah, he's got everything.
Every now and then you see some accuracy issues, but you're going to see that with very few guys. Every single throw is perfect.
He's toolsy.
But
he's toolsy. That's the word that I would use. He's got all of the tools at his disposal. And so the idea of him sitting and learning an NFL offense and learning how to be a pro for a year or 2 is why I love the idea of Cam Ward on the New York Jets. But I'll tell you this, one of the skills that I think is super, super important for a quarterback to have, and I think Cameron Ward is one of the best players that I've seen in a long time with this, is his ability to handle the football. And you may ask yourself, Chris, what do you mean by that? Well, you know how we always talk about the way the quarterback holds the ball on a play fake, or the way they're able to manipulate defenders with the way that they orchestrate the football. There's a play, and it's from his first year at Washington State, and I cannot unsee the play. It's how great it is. He gets the snap, and it's a fake where the receiver is coming across on one of those jet sweep touch passes, and Cam Ward literally throws the ball in the air about 2 inches in front of him and releases his hands off the ball to completely fool the defense, and then he grabs it back. It's unbelievable ball control and ball ability to trust yourself enough to commit yourself to the fake that much, and that stuff's unbelievable. I've said this off. I think I said it to you, Glenn. I know I've said it behind the scenes to some people, but when I watched him for the first time in his first year at Washington State, I really felt like I was watching a bigger, more physical version of everything people loved about Kyler Murray. That's what I felt like I was watching. He can move.
I heard someone else say that today.
He's got athleticism.
There's an online guy who he's going to be at the Senior Bowl.
Stole it from me then.
I forget what is I think I actually retweeted it because I liked it. I thought, oh, that's a good comparison.
He's a bigger version of Kyler Murray, and I think that's huge to have a guy that's able to do all those things, but also not worry about him being small, him potentially getting hurt, his ability to see over the offensive line, all the concerns that we had with Kyler. So to be a bigger version of that is awesome. Yeah, I'm in on Cam Ward.
It was John Vogel.
Well, John, it's a great
I don't
take
know
by
if you're
you.
familiar with him.
I'm not, but it's a great take by John.
Yeah, Draft Lounge. Yeah, I just became aware of him a few days ago, and I liked some of what he was saying. Gave him a follow, and and like I said, I think that's a good comp. I think that's a good comparison. Um, just let's see, let's go Jets. Absolutely, we'll see where they go. And listen, the mocks are going to be a lot more fun. When there's the Jets, they don't have enough picks. They have to make a trade or two. They have to. I'm
I
very
certainly would
interested to
think
see
so.
what happens with Bryce Huff. Is there a tag and trade possibility there? And again, as I've said to people before, I'm not saying I want Bryce Huff gone. I just think you have to if you have a weakness, which for the Jets it is, they don't have enough talent and they don't have enough draft picks. You're going to have to let go of some of your better players to make that happen. I think Huff could be a guy you let move on and you transition McDonald to more reps. And of course, I think Over the Cap is projecting 3 7th-round picks. So make a deal, add some picks. Let's get the comp picks announced, and all of a sudden you're talking about some more bodies there. Where we hope they grab a guy like Ivan Pace or something like that.
Yeah, and I mean, the other thing too is going to be interesting of what they do with Bryce Huff this offseason, because they could put the second round tag on him if they want, right? So, and then that's a way to recoup a second round pick pretty quickly.
Yeah,
If they wanted to go that direction, I think it would be ridiculous to move on from Bryce, but they haven't been able to come to terms on a long term deal,
that's
so
that's
it would be a concern.
that's the thing. I think he might be like I look up and down that roster, like what player gives you the best chance to get a legitimate pick, and
Right.
it would be Bryce. Somebody mentioned to me the other day JFM. I think and rightfully so. I think he's a very underrated player. I think they love him. Like he can play well inside, he can play well outside. Based on his salary and the way they're constantly going up, he's not really an expensive guy. I'd be surprised if he goes, given the versatility, but who knows? I think they got to make a deal, at least one deal. Um, Player for picks.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, the offseason's extremely important. I think they need to make sure they have a second round pick in this draft because they just have so many needs. And they need to deal from positions of strength. And really, their positions of strength are the pass rushers. And Bryce Huff in particular is one of the biggest trade chips they're going to have this offseason. And so it really does feel strongly that that's the lever that they're going to pull to try to get some draft capital back. So they're picking in the first, the second, and they probably feel very comfortable with the group that they have in house. Will McDonald getting more snaps,
Yep.
Jermaine Johnson, like they must feel really, really good about that group. And so, yeah, we'll see. I mean, again, a lot of this is going to sort itself out based on what they do in free agency because they are going to spend money. Do not think they are going to go into draft night still needing 3 offensive linemen
No,
and needing 2 wide
they've got to
receivers.
add. They've
It's
got
not
to
going to
add
happen.
at least a couple of linemen in free agency. And man, AVT, man, but that'll be another topic this offseason. It's like you can't count on him,
No, you
but
can't.
man, do you need him to come back and stay healthy and play a full season?
The Jets have 1.5 offensive linemen that I'm confident in. The half of Elijah Vera Tucker that plays and Joe Tippmann. That's it.
Yeah.
I don't trust anybody else. I'm sorry, Laken Tomlinson, but I don't think you should be on the 2024 New York Jets.
No, but I think he might be. I think.
Well, then, then this team's going to
I
struggle.
think the cap again once to get Rodgers. I'm pretty sure Tomlinson was one of those guys they restructured, pushed some money back a little bit, and then all of a sudden you kind of have to have him on the roster. I think it's a $9 or $10 million hit if you cut him. So it's that's part of the downside. There are a couple of guys that I would love them to say, you know what, we're just moving on. Like we're gonna take the hit. We're gonna eat that cap hit. Find another way to make it work. But and I don't know. I haven't heard any word. I don't know if the cap's going up. Um, Sometimes you see these crazy jumps, where it goes up 15, 16 million. They could sure use something like that, but we'll see. We'll see. We'll wrap this one up. Oh, the Jets play this weekend, by the way, Sunday, if I'm not mistaken. Don't care.
You can tell that we've shifted. Our mindset is completely changed.
Yeah, there's a football game. Dalvin Cook, by the way, was let go. Huge news. I expected a big bidding war for Dalvin Cook because my understanding from Robert Saleh is that he's finally got his legs under him. But the league did not care. Nobody claimed him. Ravens put him on their practice squad. But listen, I said about Dalvin Cook, as with any running back, if you get on a team with a good enough O-line, you might put up some numbers. And
Well,
that
that
Ravens O-line is pretty damn good, you
yeah,
know?
but I will say that will be a bad look for the New York Jets if he goes somewhere and he looks good, right? Like people are going to look back and say you couldn't get that out of him. Now there are some people who think he's, I hate to use the pun, but they think he's cooked, and so that he can't play
Yeah.
anymore. And so if that's the case, then you just made a mistake. But if you made a mistake and then you got rid of him and then he went someplace else and he thrived, then that just even more shows that your offensive scheme stinks and that your offensive line play has stunk out loud this season.
Which that's one thing I wanted to mention before we go. Not that it's, I'm sure these people aren't watching because they don't like me, but I had I sent out a tweet, and I hate when people miss the point of a tweet.
Oh, love
And
those. Love
I
these
kept
tweets.
saying to people, "You're missing the point. That's not what." So here's the tweet I sent in a nutshell. I
Okay.
basically said, "A lot of Jets players who were let go are playing much better than they played when they were on the Jets. Michael Carter, Morgan Moses, Greg Van Roten, George Fant. Like all these guys moved on and played better." And the way people's brains interpreted that tweet was all of these players are awesome and the Jets shouldn't have let them go. And people are like, "Oh, dude, you're such a clown. All of a sudden, Michael Carter is Adrian Peterson." No, I'm saying all of a sudden, Michael Carter is better than he was with the Jets. That's my only point. And the number, like almost every reply was, "Oh, I can't believe you think these guys are good." I didn't say they were good. I said one day they were Jets, and the next day they weren't. And when they weren't, they were all better. That was it. That was my whole point, which is a coaching issue. Michael Carter is just like 7 yards a carry, and he's only got 18 carries. He didn't even have that many with the Jets, and he was averaging 4.4, and they cut him. And so people read tweets and they see what they want to see.
Yep.
Nobody was calling Michael Carter Adrian Peterson.
I will say he's been good for Arizona. He's been very good.
I've had it. And I'm glad. I like the guy.
I work in Arizona. I work at a radio station. We cover Arizona sports every single day. Like I've been paid. I pay attention to the Cardinals for my job. Like he's been good. He's been very, very good for them. So
yeah, had a touchdown catch the other day. Had a 19-yard run or something.
Yeah, he's been solid for them. He's given them a nice change of pace to what James Conner provides.
Yeah, I actually saw a piece the other day. Somebody retweeted it saying that he could be part of their long-term plans.
Yeah.
You might want to extend him.
100%.
So Kev, all of a sudden he's better because of coaching. And a lot of guys, a lot of guys are better when they leave the Jets. It's and a lot of guys come here and get worse. Laken Tomlinson, right? It's ongoing cycle, never ends. But we will wrap this one up. Thanks for checking us out, tuning in. Lots more draft content coming. We will be wrapping up the Pats game this week. I'm going to say Jets lose. It's Trevor Siemian. And I don't get this. Let's send Belichick out with a loss. Like anyone is going to care or remember that 10 minutes after the game. Like that's going to be a Jeopardy trivia question. Mm-hmm. What team beat Bill Belichick? Nobody cares. Nobody's literally. It's too. Now, maybe if you're saying knock him out of the playoffs, like, okay, maybe there's some meaning there. This season is over for both teams. Nobody's going to care the second after that game ends who won. The number of people I've seen like, yeah, let's get Belichick. Yeah, I'm sure he's going to resign. He's going to step down from coaching. I can't believe I lost to the Jets who were 5-70 and we're 2-90. Like, I'm so heartbroken. They both stink. Who cares?
I agree 100%. I want them to lose. I want them to, put themselves in a good position draft wise. If they win, it's not going to be the end of the world. Like they're going to pick where they're going to pick.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would much rather the loss to open up the door for them to go as high as number 5.
Yeah, they'll still be. I think that basically, I think the worst they can do is 12, and even at 12, I think they'll be in position to get a tackle, and that's what matters. And hopefully, man, if some miracle strikes and they get up to 5, then you're talking possible trade down territory. But we will see. More coming up next week. Enjoy the game this weekend, folks, as much as you can. Last one of the year. Like it or not, soak it in. I just watch and hope the kids play well. Have a good one, Jets fans. We're going to wrap this one up.